Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing another book review and we'll be reviewing the book Final Girls by Riley Sager, and it was actually one of my book of the month pick for the month of July. So I am very behind in terms of reading this book, but I'm glad I read it. It is a thriller and I really enjoyed it, so let's just get started. As always, I'll be starting off with the non-spoiler / summary of this book. So just as a background story, before the book even started, about 10 years ago, Quincy Carpenter was the sole survivor of a massacre called the Pine Cottage Massacre, where she becomes one of the final girls, which is a group of similar survivors. She is number 3 in this small group. The other two final girls are Lisa Milner, who lost 9 sorority sisters to a college dropout in Indiana and eventually survived by killing the murderer herself, and Samantha Boyd, who was only in high school at the time and had a job cleaning rooms at a motel called Night Light Inn when the Sack Man appeared and murdered motel guests and employees before Samantha herself finally killed him. So while these two girls remember what happened, however, Quincy herself remembers nothing about what happened that night except for the very beginning when her best friend Janelle came running out of the woods with multiple stab wounds and when she was finally saved by the cop Coop. So this is all information that happened before this book actually took place. Right in the beginning, within a few chapters, Quincy finds out that Lisa Milner actually committed suicide and was found dead in her tub. She also realized that she might have been actually the last person that Lisa had reached out to via email. The next day after this news was released, Quincy somehow finds herself having an unexpected guest, aka Samantha Boyd, who shows up in front of her doorsteps with the intention of trying to help her now that Lisa is dead. And Samantha at this point has been pretty much off the grid and has been disappeared for the past few years. She was also going by the name of Tina Stone and had changed her name actually to stay off the grid. And then a few days later, an unexpected news, or perhaps not so unexpected, was revealed that Lisa's death was actually not a suicide but a murder. And like I said, since Quincy might have actually been the last person Lisa had tried to contact before her death, Quincy feared that this had something to do with the final girl status. And at this point, Sam has been staying at Quincy's place for the past few days and has somehow managed to rope her in to a bunch of midnight rendezvous with trying to bait these men and then beating them when one night things just went wrong. So as the story goes along, Quincy is in contact with a reporter called Jonah, as well as a detective called Detective Hernandez, who somehow managed to piece together some suspicious facts of Sam's past. Now, she's not really sure as to why Sam is even there in the first place and if she had played a role in Lisa's death. And as the book continues, who is telling the truth, who is lying, they're all finally revealed. And just when you think you know something, the author presents a plot twist that makes you realize that you really don't know anything. Also, in the meantime, the past about Pine Cottage is slowly revealed every few chapters or so, and as the book continues, the truth about that night is slowly revealed. So basically, my 2 cents, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. There were so many times when I thought I knew something was going to happen, or when I expected a certain person or a certain situation to play out, and the author just presents this major plot twist over and over again, and then I realized that I didn't know anything. And as a thriller, that's something I really enjoy and expect. So I definitely recommend this book for those who enjoy thrillers and suspense novels, because this book definitely kept me at the edge of my seat. So that's essentially what this story is about. If this book sounds interesting, definitely go check it out and come back here. Or if you've already read this book, then continue on with me to the spoiler section. First of all, I just want to say that I had so many expectations and predictions as to how this book would end, who had done what, and etc. But all of my expectations were pretty much wrong. I had really hoped that Quincy and Coop would get together. I just sensed so much chemistry between the two and desire, and then when it was revealed who the murderer was, that was so sad. I was just like, alright, well, guess that trying love was not going to be happening anytime soon whatsoever. I was also really sure that Sam was the one behind Lisa's murder because all the signs were pointing to that, and then that was not the case at all. So anyways, so regarding Quincy, so in the beginning of the book, she's kind of portrayed as this normal girl. She runs this baking blog and she seems relatively normal for like a nice fiance, or boyfriend who was going to be a fiance, or at least that's the expectation. And but then as she starts to reveal certain things about herself, such as the fact that she was popping Xanax like candy, and the fact that she was pickpocketing people for no reason, such as stealing iPhones from people, stealing bracelets, lipsticks, like miscellaneous items for no reason. But at the same time, you can also tell that she's just trying to do her best to move on and have a relatively normal life after the massacre that happened 10 years ago. And the boyfriend that I just mentioned, aka Jeff, I was not such a huge fan of him. For me, he seemed like way too nice of a guy and way too normal that he really expected Quincy to be normal. And there were so many times when he just asking her, well, you're normal, right? Like, you're over it. And honestly, like, I feel like he didn't really understand that surviving through something like that is not something you can ever get over, and you can only be up to like as normal as you can possibly be, and that a normal person's expectation of normal versus her expectation of normal is completely different. And the fact that he kept trying to tell her, oh, you're normal right now, like, you know, you don't want to think about that in the past anymore. And when Samantha showed up, he was just like, well, she's Samantha, like, I don't know where she's coming from, and you're normal, I don't want you to associate with her, etc. I don't know, I just did not really like the guy that much. He just somehow just rubbed off me the wrong way. So when things finally ended at the end of the book for them, I was more relieved for the both of them that now they can finally find someone who they really want, because Jeff was clearly looking for a girl that was way more normal than Quincy was. Quincy was trying to find a normal guy who can just accept her, but they're just not a really good match. So at the end, I was just relieved that they had moved on, and yeah. As for Sam, I was constantly confused and suspicious of her. I never knew why she was there in the first place. There were so many different signs that pointed to different things. For example, it didn't seem like she was there for money, but then there was that one scene when Quincy asked her to kind of house sit, and Sam was like, okay, well, you know, usually you need to pay people for that. And Quincy offered her 500, and Sam was like, well, I think 1,000 is better. So that scene kind of threw me off, because I thought, oh, maybe she is there for money. You know, at this point when that occurred, that was like about halfway, 3/4 of the way in, something like that, I don't remember. So that confused me. But at the same time, it also seemed as if she kept trying to get Quincy to remember her past and kept egging her on to remember what really happened. Another thing that threw me off was the anger that Sam had for the final girls, and then how she would coerce Quincy onto these midnight raids, like I mentioned, and go after these men and beat them and whatever. I don't know, it was just very strange to me as to why that was happening. And then rather than helping Quincy, which is why she was originally there in the first place, that was her reasoning to her, she just, you know, stood back and let Quincy spiral down further and further. And then she would actually use that as leverage against her when things didn't go the way she wanted. So overall, I just found her character kind of weird and perplexing. But then now that the book is done, in retrospect, I can think of, okay, I can actually appreciate her character, because her character definitely made the book more suspenseful. It kept me at the edge of my seat because I constantly didn't know what to expect from her. So at the end, I can appreciate her character because it made the thriller that much better. But during the book, it was definitely frustrating. And in regards to the chapters about the past of Pine Cottage, all I can say is that Quincy's ex-best friend, Janelle, was such a bitch. I mean, the reason why they're there at the beginning for that weekend was because of Janelle's birthday. But the way how Janelle treated everyone around her and was so bratty and bossy did not sit well with me. I did not like her character at all. And also the fact that Janelle kept coveting after Quincy's boyfriend. It was so obvious to everyone except for Quincy herself. But I don't know, Janelle was like the worst friend possible. Not to mention Quincy's boyfriend at the time, Craig, was also such an asshole. The fact that in the beginning I liked him, or at least as much as I can tell, because he didn't show up that often, but he seemed nice and sweet and didn't really want to push Quincy. But then when things got heated up between them and Quincy was just like, oh, I'm not actually ready to go all the way, Craig was like, okay, fine. And then he just leaves her. And then he goes off and bangs Janelle. I don't know, like, they're all in the same freaking, like, lodge, you know, the same cottage, the same building. Like, you can't just go do that, even though, I mean, technically Janelle and Craig went off to the woods to get it done, but still, as Quincy's best friend and as Quincy's boyfriend, that kind of stuff is just no. You don't do that. I also didn't understand Janelle's logic about the whole letting a random stranger into our midst and having a party, and we should party with this random guy, aka Joe. Like, why is he even there? Doesn't anyone feel that it's unsafe to have some random dude just chilling with them and getting drunk with them in the middle of nowhere? I mean, no one even wanted him there, but no one had the guts to tell Janelle, no, we don't want this guy here, he should go home, he should go on his way, etc. Even the guy didn't want to be there, you know? But, like, what kind of logic is that? Like, Janelle's logic never made sense to me. She's a terrible friend, she's a terrible person. That is all I have to say about her. So now that I talked about my own personal feelings about the characters and some of the events, let's just go into my internal thought process as the climax was revealed and all my predictions and expectations when I was later proved to be completely wrong. So right off the bat, like I said in the really beginning, I always thought that Sam was the one who murdered Lisa, and I continued to think that way for a very long time. And I didn't even consider the murder at Pine Cottage, well, the murderer at Pine Cottage, to be any different. I thought that the Pine Cottage chapters was just as a way for us to find out what really happened and for Quincy to, you know, regain her memories of that night. And then the whole sex incident was revealed when Quincy and Craig was getting hot and steamy, and then things turned not so hot and steamy, and Craig ended up in the woods with Janelle. Then it begs the question, okay, so who did Quincy actually have sleep with? Because clearly it wasn't with Craig, because right prior to this it was revealed that, you know, when she was at the police giving her report after this incident, she had sex with someone. But at this point you obviously know it's not Craig, so the question is, who was it? And then it was also revealed around the same time that the murderer of Pine Cottage was Joe, aka the mysterious guy that Janelle had so helpfully and randomly invited to this party of theirs. Obviously, when this whole situation was revealed, my next thought process was, oh my god, did she sleep with Joe? Is that what happened? Is that why he ended up sparing her, because, you know, she did the dirty with him? Like, is that what really went down that night? But then shortly right after, another tidbit was revealed when Quincy herself, after sleeping with Joe, was in a fit of rage between Craig and Janelle, grabbed the kitchen knife and went storming off into the woods. And then obviously at this point I'm thinking, oh my goodness, was Quincy the one who murdered them? Is that why she blacked out, because she doesn't remember, and it was too terrible of memories for her to remember that she was the one who murdered them? So this is all revealed in the Pine Cottage chapters. And then all of a sudden it goes back to present day, and Quincy meets up with the reporter Jonah, who tells her about the fact that Samantha Boyd, aka Tina Stone, might actually be two separate people. And going through the facts that they found, it was revealed that they were actually two different people. So the question is now, who is the person that's been staying at Quincy's place for the past few days, and what happened to Samantha, or who is Tina and what's going on? And that's when things started to kind of click in place for me, because that's when I realized, oh, maybe the person with Quincy this time is not Samantha Boyd and it's actually Tina Stone, because it was revealed that Tina was actually in the same psychiatric ward that Joe was. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Joe was in the psychiatric ward near the woods where this whole situation went down, and Tina was his friend. So that made me think, okay, maybe that's why she was so adamant about finding out what really happened that night, because she was there and she didn't want, you know, Quincy to remember that she was an accomplice because she's still alive. So at this point my mind is kind of in this daze, because I'm just still absorbing what's going on and all the different plot twists, and my mind going different directions. And then I turn the page and all of a sudden the result, or the climax, is revealed, and it turns out that Joe wasn't even there when the murders happened. He actually left the area and only came back because he heard screams. And then obviously at this point I now knew who the murderer was, because it was really obvious and kind of broke my heart a little bit. So obviously at the end of the day it was Coop It was always Coop. And then it made me think, how creepy is that? I mean, you've been Quincy's close friend and confidant for the past 10 years, and you've been her biggest source of, you know, emotional support. And it turns out that you were the one who caused all of this. I mean, that's kind of creepy in a way. So by the time the climax was revealed, which is like literally the second to last chapter, my mind was completely blown apart because I didn't know what was going on anymore. The guy that I thought would end up with Quincy clearly was the complete end of the spectrum. And when the final chapter was revealed, it was kind of a bittersweet moment for me because it made me think that, okay, Quincy, you know, grew up or matured or has moved on to the point that now she's the one reaching out to the next final girl. And the other part of me that is kind of bitter is the fact that why does there always have to be more than one final girl? Why couldn't it just end with that? Because the final chapter revealed another massacre and this girl who survived, and Quincy went after her and tried to tell her, this is how, you know, this is the final girls and this is who we are, blah blah blah. And I'm just thinking, why did it have to end like this? Why couldn't it just end with her, you know, trying to move on with life instead of having another final girl? You know, like I didn't like that. So it was a bittersweet ending for me, I guess. The one thing I really enjoyed at the end though is how the relationship between Tina and Quincy developed. They went from awkward acquaintances because of the final girls, that is, to being extremely suspicious of each other, to being, oh my goodness, you are the killer, to, oh, now we're friends, kind of. So overall, like I said, tons and tons of plot twists, which is awesome since it's a thriller, and it definitely kept me at the edge of my seat. So at the end of the day, I highly recommend this book to those who enjoy thriller and suspense novels because it's definitely one of the top ones that I've read recently. But anyways, that is all I have to say for Final Girls. And if you enjoyed my review, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you. Bye.